put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is the Christchurch Central parking plan. And we have Mike Teelan, and we have Tim Cheeseborough, and we have Ruth Hudson. Thank you. Would you like to take us through the plan?
So thank you. The purpose of the Christchurch Central Parking Plan is to provide a key source of information on the current and future availability of parking in the central city. It's mainly for council, the Crown and the private sector, so it's a key source of information. The parking plan is part of the Accessible City Work Programme. It was one of the first priority projects to be identified. And we briefed council last on it on 19th of May, and then we were requested to come to Urquhart to endorse the parking plan. That's why we're here today. The parking plan is a non-statutory document. It's a live document, so that we really want to keep it updated so the information is current and that we can monitor the parking supply and demand across the central city. The plan forecasts the current and future parking demand and supply. So we're looking at both the short term, so from now to the next 3 years, we've got a model around that. And then we've also got the long term demand. So in 2041, what are we expecting to see in terms of parking demand from the city? The parking plan is based on the recovery plan and the land use forecasts in that. So that shows us the number of people living and working in the central city and visiting the city. We've used this data to estimate roughly what the future supply and demand is for a range of activities through the central city, from offices, retail, hospitality, and residential. The parking plan identifies some likely locations and quantity of parking facilities that are needed to support some of the key precincts and destinations around the central city. I guess the key priority and recommendation for us is that council should be focusing on the short stay visitor parking, so encouraging visitors and making it easy for people to visit the city for that sort of 3 to 4 hour period, rather than focusing on long stay commuter parking, which we hope to meet by, I guess, more people walking, cycling and travelling by other modes. By focusing on the short stay parking, can do that through the rebuild of our own parking facilities, so we're working through the Litchfield and Crossing decisions on that, and by working with the private sector to facilitate the supply from the private sector. So the parking plan is really an information tool so that everyone has got the same information on future demand and supply to help with those conversations. It's about information sharing and making sure that the needs are met across the city. And then we want to work with the private sector to help make informed decisions so they can decide on their own parking provisions and opportunities to be involved in parking. We've developed a parking model which we'll be using to monitor the changing situation in parking. There's a short-term one for the 1 to 3 years, and we're using that to identify temporary parking sites around the city. So as we see the rebuilds sort of progress, we can monitor that situation and keep looking for temporary sites around the city to make sure that there is adequate supply around the city, addressing some of the hotspots that we know there are now. And then the long-term demand is about trying to inform where we might put future parking facilities and having that information publicly available so that anybody has access to that information. So I guess if the plan is endorsed, we'd like to start communicating and sharing this information with the private sector, hold some information sessions and get the information up on the website so that everyone can start using the same information.
So one of the questions that I have is that I wonder whether it might be better before we endorse the plan that the that the committee that Phil Clearwater chairs, the Environment Committee, perhaps held a public workshop with interested parties to actually workshop the plan and then bring it back for endorsement. And I know that, I mean, what I think you're asking for is that we endorse the plan the way it is today, and then it go out for sort of socialisation. But it seems to me that there might be elements of it that could that could come up in a post endorsement environment that we would then have to review, because it's a living, breathing document, as you've said. And I just wonder whether that actually socialising it in that way through the Environment Committee with the people that will have a significant, I mean, people always have something to say about parking and cycling and public transport and the interface. And I just wondered, it wouldn't hold things up, because I think they've got a meeting on the 26th of August. Well, how would that feel?
Yeah, that would work well. We could do that. I mean, I think the key thing is that this is a resource really for to keep people informed. So more than happy to put in that extra loop and have that consultation through the Environment Committee before we finally sign it off by council. Yep, absolutely.
Well, then I will move that the report be referred to the Environment Committee on the 26th of August. And that we, I mean, that may not be the date for the public workshop, but that it would be in order to progress a public workshop, particularly with stakeholders. I think, would it be or just a workshop with stakeholders, in order to. And then bring it back here for endorsement. Yeah?
Come back from the committee.
Yeah, come back from the committee for endorsement.
Come back from the committee and then just get reported through to council? Would that be the
report
right
it through. Yeah, report it back through to council after. Yeah, but the Environment Committee will report it to us. Yeah, after the public workshop. Yeah, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. On page.
No, I don't want to go through the plan. Because this is the
can I just ask, because I think it's relevant to the financial situation that we're in, that we're going out for a financial consultation on September 4th, and what I really want to understand is we've got 70 million towards car parking. When can we get a feel for how that money's going to be spent? I mean, some of it's already been committed, but can we get a memo around? No,
they're decisions that we're going to have to make as part of the long-term plan. So this is a framework for a parking plan, which is a living, breathing document. So I don't want to sidetrack onto the decision-making framework.
Can I ask, as part of this going to the Environmental Committee, that we do get an outline of the financial?
No, this is the parking plan. There's a
whole bunch of dollar signs. Like, there's all this money being committed or being mentioned without any specific amounts, and I just find it really hard to embrace, even when it goes to the Environment Committee, to endorse a plan without understanding, if we want to provide a building at Manchester Street or Litchfield Street, or this is how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, but this is not the purpose of the plan.
And do we get the opportunity to make those decisions about where our car parking buildings are going to go?
Yeah, that's going to come. I mean, it's not coming right now. This is a framework for decision making.
There is a certain amount of money on budget for car parking. This combines public car parking and private car parking. If for the public car parking we spend the money on one, we can't spend it on the other. It's quite simple.
Yeah, so the call in the cost share was to go from 7 to 3 car parking buildings. So I just think the sooner we make a decision about which ones we're replacing,
Yeah. Michael, would you like to?
I think, you've hit it on the head. This is a resource document that informs decision making both for ourselves and for the private sector. I mean, I think in some respects the decisions around how and when we'll invest in car parking, they're going to emerge over time. We made some commitments around the overall capacity, and obviously, but when and where and how we deliver, I think that's going to evolve as the rebuild delivers as well. And also what we also know is that there's a lot more interest in provision of car parking by the private sector as well. So we're trying to be, I suppose, this resource helps inform the whole discussion and puts us in a place so that as development starts to occur around and rebuild starts to occur, there will be a timely point at which we need to come back and say, now's the time to focus on where we might go in the northeast quadrant of the central city or the southwest quadrant. I don't see it's either useful or we don't have enough information at the moment to say, actually, we know exactly where we want to be in 5 or 10 years' time with multi-storey car parks.
But what concerns me, like today, we've got another big announcement for an anchor project, which we have no idea about what the car parking provision is. So there's all these decisions that have been made in isolation and on an ad hoc basis as things come up or things get decided by the Crown or by Council, but without an overall understanding of what our plan is. So that's what concerns me, because I don't actually think it's good just to leave it to an ad hoc basis, because actually private car parking provision is quite different than public car parking provision.
Well, I mean, effectively what we want to do is manage car parking. And yes, we've got a role to play, and so does the private sector. So it's actually, in this document at the moment is about informing that by actually getting a clear picture of what the overall future demand is likely to be based on our best forecasts. And as Ruth has said, we'll continually update those so that as the private sector potentially starts to provide more, it may be that the council needs to make less investment or partner with those providers in different ways. Equally, if we can get some good modal shift going, our long-term demand for car parking buildings may shift as well. So yes, it's important to have a go-forward plan, and this provides the basis for that. But I think those conversations need to happen over time as a sense of where and the pace of development evolves.
Paul?
Yeah, look, there is a huge amount of interest from the private sector to actually partner up and do stuff with car parking. And the biggest concern I'm hearing from the business sector in the city is more around capacity rather than actually who's going to deliver it. Someone will deliver it, but it's a capacity. And I just want to make a point that we allow suburban shopping centres to put 2,500 car parks bang in an area with very little thought to actually the traffic congestion. And the business sector in the city, also being a key activity centre, is looking at some of the capacities that are in this report here. Around sort of 500 is like a amount that is going to be acceptable, but for them it's probably not. So I think the public workshop, as you pointed out, would be a good idea to figure out and tease out some of those capacity issues.
And what I really like about it is are the guiding principles, to establish them from the outset. And I think you'll get a lot of public buy-in for the principles. And then there'll be a debate about where the public car parks will be allocated. And a lot of that has to do with where the private ones are going to be allocated, because our primary focus, as this says, is to prioritise public short-stay parking visitor to support businesses. And I mean, that's priority number 2 in that list. I'm assuming they're not in any particular order, but the first one is to provide parking to support economic vitality. I mean, it makes absolute sense. So, but where the private sector are delivering for their long-term parks, they may in fact want to see some short-term parks made available as well. So I think this is a really good place to start that socialising this plan, because if it goes out after we've endorsed it and then people say, well, actually this principle here actually conflicts with another one or something, then we won't have had that discussion first. So I think that having the public engagement with stakeholders through the relevant committee and then reporting back to us, I think we'll get a really good place, good result. So you'll second it, Paul Lonsdale? Councillor Jones, would you like to endorse that as well? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.